So I'm going to just take a moment here while we're doing the demo to show you something, and that is these toilets and how they work. So the toilet bowl carries water about this height, okay? It's to this height right here. So this is full of water right up to here. Makes sense? So it covers this part of the bend so that sewer gas from the septic systems or your city sewer systems can't work their way through. It gets trapped by the water. And when you're going to remove a toilet in your house, in order to keep the water from splashing all over the place, the goal is to get the water from here down to here so that you can manage it, all right? There's only two options. Well, there's three. You can use a vacuum, and then you're introducing bacteria to your vacuum. You can use a sponge, but then you got to pull that sponge out with your hand. Or you can do this, which is quick and simple. Before you turn the water off to your house, which you do every time you do a bathroom renovation, if you'd like your house not to be flooded out and destroyed, turn off your shutoff valve, empty out the tank as much as it will go, and then you fill up about 1.5 gallons of water. Now, this is exactly the normal height. You're gonna see there's probably a ring in a lot of toilets. This one's relatively new, but here's what you do. You just take the water, and rather quickly you pour it in, and it creates so much vacuum, it sucks it out to a new height level. Here we go, ready? Vacuum, boom, new height level, okay? That's how high the water was, and now it's almost 3 inches lower, which means back here on this side of the toilet, it's way down here now, okay? And you got all of that flexibility there. When you go to remove your toilet now, if you have a little bit of bumbling and stumbling, it's not going to splash all the way up and over and make a huge mess. Cheers. All right, well, here's the classic example of what not to do. Might as well show it. Great teaching moment. This is a laminate tongue and groove floor tile. It's like a panel, okay? So this is laminate flooring in a tile pattern. It's a 1x2 squares, and this was installed after this flange went in. And whoever put it in didn't know any better, but they didn't raise the flange, they didn't use a flange extension kit. The rule is simple, at least flush with the floor, but for best optimal results, you want to be about 1/4 inch above the floor. The flange itself is a 1/4 inch flange, which means the flange should be on top of the floor. Now, having said that, instead of using an extension wax ring flange kit, they just went with the cheapest option, the 89 cents wax ring. This probably isn't even attached. Nope, there's nothing else there. It's just wax. All right, and so this is all wrong. I'm gonna find rot underneath this for sure. Now I already know, and you know, to be honest with you, this doesn't surprise me. The large majority of toilets that I replace are installed improperly. I'm gonna say somewhere around 90%. Like the guys who put them in on new construction do it right. Okay, they put the flange in on the subfloor. It's already designed, like they don't have to think, but whenever they do a replacement, either the homeowner, the handyman, or the plumber, God bless you all, but most of you guys cheat on this. You don't use the right process. This should have at least had a double thick wax ring to try. You saw the beginning of this was all corroded. It's bent down, it wasn't clean wax, it didn't come up with the toilet, which means it was never really under compression. Whenever a wax ring is left there when you pull a toilet off, it means it just barely made contact. It was never squeezed into place, okay? That compression is where you get the seal. I got a hole here. I got rotted subfloor guaranteed. Can't wait to pull this floor up. So excited. Now, drop in my coffee cup. That'll seal it from letting the gases come out into my house while I'm working. Disappointing, but no big surprise. All right, I'm gonna take this opportunity to teach you one more thing, guys. This particular valve, you see this huge nut here, okay? This is a multi-turn valve, it's not a 1/4 turn. It'll go 1 or 2 rotations and let the water out. Now right now the water of the building is off, okay? And so is the shutoff valve. But I can't trust this shutoff valve in the off position at the end of the day. Here's why. This shutoff valve has got a cylinder and there's 2 gaskets on it. One direction, when it's all the way in, it keeps the water from coming into the valve. When it's open all the way out, it keeps water from leaking into the room. If I leave this closed and I do all my renovation and I'm trusting that rubber gasket that hasn't been used in years in a lot of cases, which dries out and fails, I can run into a situation where the water will slowly be leaking into this pipe, and while I'm sleeping, it's dripping all over the place, making a huge wet mess. Okay, don't trust a valve that could be failed. Right now the water's off. You don't know if that actually works. take off your water supply line. This is standard. It's a 3/8. Boy, that's been on there for a while too. You know. Now there's gonna be a little water come out because the hose is full. That's manageable. That's just called wet, okay? There's a difference between wet and a flood. Now, I've got this. Tap it and see if the water's coming through. And you might feel like, okay, well that's not filling up too fast. But it is filling up. Son of a gun. You leave that, turn the water back on, go to sleep, and you don't do this, you could have a flood in the morning. So what you do, you take this paste, here, let me just open it up. Okay, it's pipe thread sealant found in the plumbing aisle, anywhere you go. You throw a little bit of that inside this fitting, okay? Because you want to have your brush clean. You don't want to start wiping up dirty surfaces. And then you take that cap, 3/8 on 3/8, and if you don't know where to find it, there's a bunch of brass fittings at the hardware store. They have a whole shelf of it. Look for something that says 3/8 OD, which stands for the outside diameter, okay? And it's got to be a cap, compression fit. Those are the things you're looking for, all right? And if you need to take a screenshot of that on your camera before you go to the store, then go right ahead. You take that to the hardware store and you'll be able to get exactly what you need. If it's a brass fitting, it's a 3/8 cap, okay? End of discussion. Now, you turn that and until it's like really snug, and then give it a quarter turn. That's it. Now that is guaranteed to never leak, okay? Guaranteed to never leak. Money in the bank. No flood, guaranteed. And it's not going to accidentally get kicked off. Here's the other thing. People without a cap and they trust this little valve, you're working, somebody takes the wrong step, steps right there, right? Avoid all these problems. It's not even as wide as the fitting itself, so even if you're working putting new flooring in, you're going to be fine. I really spent a lot of time on this, but you know what? Majority of your problems come from not knowing little things, and that's a little thing that can save you thousands. So here we are, we're going to install our toilet now. We're going to follow best practices for toilet installation because this is the most common, how should we say, miserable excuse for installation procedures that happen in North America. There are millions, if not tens or hundreds of millions of toilets that are installed incorrectly every year just because people are changing the thickness of their floor due to remodeling and renovations, and they're not taking the time to do it properly. No. By properly, I mean this. Here's my flange, screwed to the subfloor. You'd think that would be sufficient. There's nothing on the market that will seal a toilet to that flange with this height difference. Look at that, okay? We're talking 3/4 of an inch, all right? So the solution is this, Teflon rings. Now I buy this kit, put a link to in my Amazon distributor for this because they don't sell this at Home Depot everywhere. They do in Canada, I didn't see it down here. But these are rings that come with a gasket, okay, attached to them. So you can stack them and get a waterproof seal, all right? And the idea is the toilet bolts line up right there, okay? And all you gotta do is create a little compression. So we take a look at our hole marks and I realize that screw and this screw are where these bolts are. So we're gonna back those out. And we realize somebody installed it with these short ass little screws. That is not gonna help us at all. Okay. If they were longer, we would just reinstall those 2 screws here and here and would be good, but they're not. So, the solution here is a combination of a few things. This is an extended wax ring, okay? See this? Extra thick, all right? Reinforced, which means it has the flange inside of it that directs to the hole, okay? And it comes with extra long bolts, and this is the key. So the way this works, if you're not familiar with it, is you have a wide slot, okay, and then it goes to a skinny slot. And if I'm in the toilet looking at it like this, it's like a clock. 9 and 3 o'clock are where these bolts go. There's a little bit of garbage in that hole. Let's clean that out. Okay. 9. Wow, that's a lot of garbage in this hole. 9 and 3. Right? Fantastic. Now we're going to take our 2 flanges. We're going to line these up with these holes and these holes. Okay. Now the reason I'm using both is because my goal is to get this flush with the floor or just a little bit higher. Okay, see how there's a gap here now? All right, that's the goal. Now to make this perfect, I actually want to install a couple of screws. So, I'm going to pre-drill the Teflon ring next to and on the outside of the ring. So I'm on the outside of the gasket's on the inside. That's 3, okay? That's 3. There we go. 3 locations. Using stainless steel screws. These are 2-inch. And it puts those gaskets under compression. All right. So now I got 3 locations where the gasket's under compression. I'm pretty much flush with the floor. Might be just a hair under, but that's why I buy the extra thick, okay? Because this solves all these problems. Makes them all go away. Now, before I put my wax in, I gotta get rid of my coffee cup. That's been sealing up that hole for the last couple months. All right, now this still has the ability to move around, okay? There's no right or wrong installation here. So we're gonna just line it up on the middle, and then we're gonna take out these little plastic things here, which are a godsend. So what these do, okay, they lock that in a perpendicular position. All right. So now when I come over and I hover my toilet over top, I got bolts standing straight up instead of all on the side, okay? This is a lot easier to get this installation done now. Let's get rid of our garbage. We'll grab the toilet bowl and go set that in place. I wanted to just bring your attention to the toilet first. Here's your traditional bowl with a P-trap in it, okay? And the water comes this way and then goes through the hole. There's a bridge here and there's a bridge here. The ProFlow toilet, it's comfort height, so it's already a little bit higher, okay? It's 2-piece, it's easy to install as a 1-person. It looks like a toilet. It acts like a toilet, but the cool thing about this is it's a 1.2 gallon flush. It's really low water. And what it has is an instant siphon. So the water doesn't just come out at one spot. It comes out all around here, all shooting on an angle, okay? So when you flush it, it's instantly turning and it just sucks everything right out of there. It also has one of the largest trap sizes in the market. And it's also the most affordable because no one's ever heard of it. This is what we call a builder toilet. This is an amazing toilet. You can get it at Ferguson in the United States, Wolseley in Canada. If you have an account, it's around the 150, 160 mark, okay? Really, really effective. It's my favorite. I've been using it for years. When it comes to toilets, I would rather not spend $400 to $500 just to have something that looks sexy. I want to spend my money on performance because if it flushes, it's a good toilet. If it has smooth sides and looks sexy, but you can't tighten it to the floor, it's not a good toilet. Now, here we go. We are almost ready to tighten this on, but before we go any further, we got to get the rest of the kit because there are little caps that go on this that we want to retrieve before we go any further here. There's the rest of the goods. Lovely. So in here we have the gasket for the tank and our toilet caps We're going to need these bolts to connect the tank to the bowl. We'll need those. But first thing I want to do before I install the bowl is get this attached to the ground. Okay? I'll show you on this side the process and then we'll be okay. Now, if you're not familiar with it, these gaskets are like a little top hat, okay? And when you put the top on, it literally snaps into place, okay? So the secret here is to put this on, then you put the silver ring, and then you put the nut. And you put that under compression. You'll see that there's a little notch here. You can take any hacksaw on the market and you can cut that down. It's just a soft brass, it's not a big deal. It's designed for compression up and down, not lateral strength left and right. The secret to a good toilet install, honestly, is having a flat floor, okay? Now, this one has a minor bit of wiggle, and in just a minute, I'm gonna show you how to eliminate wiggle for life. Now, you hear that? When you start hearing noises from your tile, you know you're tightening too much. Okay, so we tighten both sides. What we're doing now is we're compressing the wax in place and making sure we have a nice positive seal between the bowl and our flange. There we go. And it shouldn't move, okay? If at this point you have any movement, I'm going to recommend that you go to the next step, which is how I teach people how to waterproof their bathroom. Because you don't want to just use a little bit of silicone here. Because silicone has got expansion capacity and compression capacity. And it won't act like a shim to your toilet, okay? So at this point, if you have any movement because you have smaller tile or a grout deviation, take a little bit of your leftover grout, mix it up, okay, and just spread a thin amount around your toilet and let it dry before you install the rest of your toilet. Once that grout dries, you can then add a silicone bead around the outside to keep the water out, but now the grout acts like a shim, like a giant concrete shim to keep your toilet from moving. If you have a toilet that moves at all, you have a toilet that leaks, okay? Like, if it moves, it leaks. That's all you need to know, all right? So the toilet that doesn't move, doesn't leak, will be good, all right? But if it's moving at all, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, here's our tank. Here's our gasket. We want that stretched right over the outside till the sides are in contact with the tank, okay? Now we're ready to stick this sucker in place. There we go. Piece of cake. Now, here's our brass bolts with a rubber gasket. They'll drop right down inside. This connects the one to the next. Our goal now is to compress that with the nut and the washer from the other side and try to make this nice and level. And the way we do this is you take your nut, you place the washer on top, you hold the bolt in place, because you're not going to be able to see this in a lot of cases, and you just fumble around until you feel the washer go over that. And you can tighten it by one finger. If you have to force or use a wrench, you're cross-threaded, okay? Remember, brass fittings are exact. They don't need a lot of help. All right, and if you're cross-threaded, you'll know. You won't even get one full turn on it. Just back it out, start it again. The easiest way to avoid cross-threading is to go in reverse until you feel it click in place. All right, fantastic. Now, in order to finish this process, we need a screwdriver, or you can stick your knife there in that big slot, and you finish tightening the bolts. And the goal is, when you put that there, you want to be pushing down because you're trying to compress that gasket, and the main gasket so that nothing's going to leak. You can do that by holding the bolt or the nut from moving and then just turning the screw as well. Remember, this isn't something that you need to over tighten. Once you've got good contact with your gasket, come on, baby. You're pushing down and then turning, you should be just fine. Check for level. Okay, here we go. Yep, this whole room's out of level. That is actually a good seal. All right, now we got to cut these bolts and put our caps on. Perfect. About 6 months ago I started this renovation. It takes forever on camera, guys. And I hid this little shutoff valve in a closet in the hallway. I forgot I even put it there until just recently. I'm ever glad I found it. Put the handle back on. Make sure this is turned off. Before we go to connect the faucet, the toilet riser. Okay. Somehow I got to get in here with two hands. Now this is just a quick note. This is the proper way to use pliers, okay? See this head comes around like this? That provides you lots of torque. So you don't have to hold this together with a lot of strength. There we go. Once we get it going, it should come off no problem. Knowing me, I use thread sealer, so it's nice and greasy. Oh yeah, lots of that there. Okay. I'll actually clean some of that out while I'm here. Now, here's the toilet riser, 16 inches, okay? So it goes from the ground to the toilet, no problem, right? So what I like to do is put it on here first. Now down here in Florida, you guys do things different than we do in Canada. Up in Canada, we have a 3/8 and then your regular toilet attachment, okay? You have a 3/8 compression to valve, which is this connection down here. Right? And it's a 7/8 fill to toilet. But you also have a 1/2 inch compression to valve, which is a much bigger size. I'm not sure why. You have two different supplies down here, but you do. And it's awfully confusing for me because I just, whoa, there's a toilet riser, grabbed it. There's a faucet riser, grab it. I had to learn the hard way. All right, now we're on, really good. And there's a gasket in there. I'll show you this end. They all come with a built-in gasket. So you're not relying on that to be a compression fitting as much as you're compressing the gasket, okay? So this is like really basic. You bend it, twist it, and then install it. Okay, it's always gonna be longer than what you need. You wanna not kink the line. So I'm holding the line with my 2 fingers down here while I'm twisting the cap on. Now I'm getting close, I'm getting compression in there. Finished. All right, now we're gonna check to see if I got any leaks. I'm looking here, I'm looking here. I'm checking this bolt and the same bolt on the other side. Those are the 4 places that this can leak. And that's on the water supply line of things. So No leaking here so far. I'm going to open this up to full because there's a second gasket inside this valve. I want to engage it in the full open position. Make sure that I don't get a drip developing here as well. Okay, so there's 5 different spots here where this can leak. And you want to manage this right out of the gate. Remember, this is hydrostatic pressure building up in here. Okay, so those 2 little washers in the bottom of the tank, when the tank is full, there's a lot of pressure there. And so they are more common to drip than anything else. Okay. Because the water supply usually runs around 50, 60 psi. But hydrostatic pressure is 50 psi per inch. So you put a 12 inches in there, you get a fair amount of water pressure on that molecule. Okay, nothing's happening. My tank doesn't wobble. My toilet doesn't wobble. I'm in great shape. Now, if your toilet wobbles, the recommendation that I give people is take a little bit of your grout and grout your toilet to the floor, okay? And what you want to do is get right underneath this edge. Fill that dark gap. It doesn't take much, okay? Just a little bit in there, and that becomes a shim when it's dry. Then you can come back afterwards and you can do your silicone work. Next step is when you've got your water supply finished through your finished flooring, take a good quality adhesive sealant. Loctite makes one. You could use silicone, but it's not as good as these advanced sealants. Curdy Fix is another great sealant, okay? And you fill in around your water supply protrusions. Use the nozzle to really make sure you got good contact. Okay? Come at it from a couple different sides. And don't worry about making a mess, because when we're all said and done, we're going to stick on one of these plates, okay? Now, this is plastic. It tears apart, okay? And so then you can just wrap it around your pipe, like so. Now, this one's a little oversized, but you get the idea. We can bury our water supply line right down to it. That's a pretty decent look for an old water supply line. All right? All right, so let's just do a quick recap. Our subfloor is waterproof. Where the subfloor meets the wall is waterproof with the Curdy band. Our tile work is silicone to the floor at the edge. Our tub is waterproof because the drain itself was waterproof sealed to our underlayment. The only other areas where we have concern are protrusions through the floor, which we just showed you, and then the toilet. Now, part of this waterproofing system for a toilet is that we're using a toilet that has 1.2 gallons of water. That's where the water sits. All right, now when you flush this thing, it has an instant siphon, gone, 1.2 gallon flush. The bowl holds 3 gallons of water. That means that you've got 3 attempts, if you plug it, to fix your plug before it'll even overflow. That is a great protection. So going with a 1.2 gallon tank versus the standard 3 to 5 gets you that performance. Okay, now, in addition, there's other sources of water. What if the sink backs up, okay, onto the floor? What if the tub is ignored while it's being filled? I know it has an overflow, but in a lot of cases that overflow is not removing the water as fast as it's coming in. So you might get a situation where you're getting a little bit of water coming over the edge before you realize it. And you'll hear that noise before you remember that you're filling your tub. Right, or one of the kids walks in and plays in the water and then forgets to turn it off. Lord, if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your toilet is attached to the flange with a wax ring. And it should be sitting flush on the ground. If it's not, grout it in, and then you can seal it with white silicone or clear silicone. I prefer the clear, because there's no such thing as a pure white toilet anymore. And as soon as you put white on this, you're gonna have the tile white, the toilet white, and the silicone white. It looks like hell. So here's what I prefer to do. Now, we're not using a whole lot here. Just enough to seal the gap from the toilet to the floor. And I like to use clear silicone because the translucent turns yellow, the clear will not. Okay, now you can take a rag afterwards and you can clean really close the edge of the toilet and take the excess off the floor. I like to work with a piece of cardboard around me so I can clean it up as I go. Come around the back. Now there is a debate over whether or not you should silicone your toilet to the floor, which is amazing to me. In apartment buildings, it's part of the building code because there's a hole in the concrete in order to run your plumbing. And the only way to make sure water doesn't go from one unit to the next is to seal the toilet to the floor. Well, you can incorporate that same technology to residential properties and avoid the possibility of any kind of localized flooding in a bathroom to reach another part of the house as well. Okay. Is it necessary? Is it part of the code in residential homes? No, it's not part of the code in residential homes. It's just part of good common sense. Okay.